Hello, everyone. We are, this is WP Product Talk. We're new hosts, so we're going to do an intro in just a second. Do we want to pop Lindsay out and do an introduction, Zach?
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, so welcome everyone as Zach and I get things figured out. But this is WP Product Talk, the week we interview an experienced WordPress product owner on strategies, tips, experiences, failures, and successes of running successful and thriving WordPress product businesses. I'm Amber Hinds. I'm the CEO of Equalize Digital, maker of the Accessibility Checker plugin.
And I'm Zack Katz. I'm founder of Gravity Kit and Trusted Login.
And today's topic is SEO to grow your product business.
And this is a great topic because it's essential for any business to be found by customers and potential customers, leads. You want to be found, you need SEO.
To talk about this today, we have Lindsay here from Pathfinder SEO. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you so much, Amber and Zach. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to have you here. Do you want to give us a little introduction about yourself and what you do at Pathfinder?
Sure. I live in Basalt, Colorado, and I work in the SEO space, probably not surprising, based on the talk title. And at Pathfinder SEO, I work with digital agency owners who want to start, grow, and scale their SEO services offering so they can grow their recurring revenue. So I essentially teach, and our software provides tools to other agency owners who want to get going with an SEO services offering, oftentimes alongside other ongoing offerings like web maintenance plans.
Thank you, Lindsay. And for anybody who's watching live on YouTube, please comment. We can see your comments. And if you have any questions for Lindsay, please go ahead and we'll ask Lindsay to answer them.
And we can share. So I saw that Matt gave us party emoji because we are trying to figure out hosting on our own. So I think, so we like to talk about starting out with why is this important for WordPress product owners? Why do we think that it is important that people talk about SEO or think about SEO and do SEO in their business? And I think for me, there's always the appeal of it's, quote, free marketing, right? Now, is it really free? I don't know, because you got to put a lot of sweat hours into it, or maybe you pay someone else to do it for you. But it is a reach. But I think another thing that really comes to mind for me, especially with WordPress products that I think I've noticed haven't put effort into SEO, is that if I have a hard time finding how to do something, I'll frequently go to Google and I'll Google plugin name this thing. Or like there was one where I was having a really hard time figuring out what their attributes for their shortcode were. And like I couldn't find in their documentation. I was trying to search like the word attributes like in their documentation. I ended up having to go to Google to search it and try and find it. And so I think the thing about SEO is it can bring you customers, but it's also something that is important for your existing customers because it might help them answer questions that they have, which if they can't find those answers, then they might churn.
Absolutely. And we really see that traffic from Google is typically one of the most effective marketing channels for WordPress product business owners. And to me, it really does two things for you. One is it creates long-term value. So it does take a lot of sweat equity and work, but what you're building is going to kind of snowball and accumulate over time. And it can do so, like you mentioned, Amber, on both sides of the coin, customer acquisition, but then also customer retention. And support and reducing your support time. So there's a lot of value there. But one of the things that I like the most about it is that it feels like it's something you own. So in this dynamic landscape that we're in, you know, you could have invested really heavily in, say, Twitter, and that could have been one of your best marketing channels. And then things on Twitter change, and all of a sudden you lose a lot of traction in that channel. yes, Google changes and evolves, but for businesses that invest in what I'd call kind of like a holistic approach to SEO, their traffic doesn't tank as that evolution happens. It steadily grows over time, and it is like an equity that you earn and that you get to hang on to. The challenge that we all face as product businesses is time. SEO is time consuming, and we're already wearing so many hats. And one of the things that we see people often do is say, either I'm not going to invest in SEO at all because it's too time consuming, I don't know how it works, I don't have the budget for it, etc. Or they really invest in what I'd call like low impact tasks. So they kind of scan their site and they go down a rabbit hole fixing something, maybe something technical, maybe something else, without a lot of strategy and thought, and they spend a lot of time, but they don't get a lot of return.
Is that like if I just use like, I don't know, Ahrefs or something, and it's like, here's all your posts that are missing meta descriptions, and I just like spend a bunch of, is that what you're saying? Like that can be not especially helpful to do that?
Absolutely. So if that's done sort of in a vacuum or in a silo, or done to some extent where you go and spend 20 hours on it, I could probably, confidently say that for most businesses, that's not going to be the most effective use of that time. And the two things that really help businesses and websites do well on Google, and that what makes SEO relatively simple in my mind's eye, is that if you invest in content marketing, sharing your expertise, and then you invest in kind of real world marketing, meaning getting out there, being on a podcast, writing a guest blog post, sponsoring a WordCamp, that builds trust and authority. And that kind of secret ingredient, when you combine those two things, those sites do really well on Google, despite not always having perfect page titles and meta descriptions, despite having broken links or needing page not found errors, needing 301 redirects. So if you focus on the big stuff, Google will sort of overlook site speed, for instance. And if you go down a rabbit hole on something else saying, well, I'm doing SEO, you are, but it's probably not going to impact your top line revenue as much as some other activities.
Yeah, I also like to think of SEO as foundational for an entire business. Like when starting a business and when creating a new product, what is the name of the product? How well does that product name rank? Is it a crowded keyword space that you would need to really spend a lot of time developing? Or should you choose a unique name that isn't already crowded? Does that help you, hurt you? So it affects your product. It affects the structure of your website from the ground up. Like, how do you want your website to be indexed? Reflects to Google the structure of what you find most important. You're telling Google that by the structure of your site. And then it also affects the structure of your business. Like, do I need a full-time person? Do I hire an agency, an SEO agency, an SEO freelancer, a contractor? So I like to think about SEO as soon as possible, just from the beginning, because it will help you even determine product market fit. Are people searching for this? If not, maybe it's not a great product. So there's a lot of SEO that goes into just the core of any business.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot about our business by doing SEO on our website because it's helped us to get to know our audience. And in the beginning, oftentimes, when you have a new product, you don't always know exactly your product market fit or your audience, or you're testing a couple different areas. And by investing in SEO, you're gathering a couple more clues and pieces to the puzzle that help to lead to that product market fit. And so there's a lot of value, as you mentioned, Zach, of thinking about SEO early, and that it really does go beyond just traffic from Google, Yahoo, Bing. It can be a big part of just sort of your foundation, your business foundation. Often the content you create, for instance, for SEO also goes out in email marketing, social media, et cetera. It might be the same thing you talk about when you're a guest on a podcast, or if you pitch to speak at a WordCamp or something like that. It ties back all together. And so, we really don't look at SEO as operating in a silo, or necessarily even sitting down and saying, I'm doing SEO for the next 3 hours. Like, you're kind of doing big picture marketing. You might be working with customers, et cetera. You might be working on documentation for a customer question, and you also publish it in a crawlable section of your site that Google can access.
I found that doing SEO is no fun, but implementing the strategies that you have when you have an SEO strategy is a way more creative and fulfilling act for me. Like doing SEO, no, I want to make things more just like better structured when I'm writing a blog post, and have that structure reflect the outcomes that the customers want when reading the documentation. Like there's so many things that involve SEO that I have a mental block against doing SEO, but I love creating good content and helping people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, circling back to what you've said, Lindsay, but even, at this broader discussion, as we're talking about why this is so important, right? That's what we're talking about right now, is that SEO, I think, is of larger activity than we might think about. Like we think about, I think traditionally it's like picking keywords. And do you have some like percent of that keyword in your title and your meta description? But everything that we're talking about now, and that like you both have shared, it's very like, it is bigger picture than just like writing a blog post with certain keywords in it.
Absolutely. And when you do think of SEO as just sitting down and doing keyword research or something like that, you usually fall into some common traps. And, when we started Pathfinder, we had spent 10 years in the agency space offering SEO services. So of course we were going to use SEO as one of the tools to acquire new customers and to get the word out. And so we had a plan, we had a strategy. We of course didn't treat ourselves as well as we treat our actual, agency customers, because we never work on our own business quite with the same skill set sometimes that we do for our customers or dedication. And we knew we had no traffic from Google. And we knew if we just focused on two things in those busy days, that concept of sharing expertise via content marketing, and then building some domain trust and authority. We had a brand new domain. Google didn't even index it. We didn't even rank for our brand name, which wasn't a competitive space. And so we knew what we needed to do. And the equation was pretty simple. We created a blog. We started blogging about, surprise, SEO. And then over in the real world, we started getting out there, and we started going to WordCamps and sponsoring and speaking whenever we could and pitching to get on podcasts. And in a very short period of time, and in SEO, that's like a couple of months, we started to see really good traction. We ranked #1 for our brand. We were getting our blog posts crawled, indexed, and ranking, top 5 and things like that. And so we went and we doubled down on content. We just created a ton of it. And in SEO, any topic, you can explode it and like come at it on every angle and create a ton of content. And we watched our traffic grow and our sales didn't grow. And, what we had started doing was the age-old trap of chasing doing keyword research, chasing the volume without always thinking about audience. Part of that was because we didn't totally know who our audience was. Were we working with business owners, marketing managers, people in specific industries, or where we ended up going is we work with digital agencies. And so over time, what we found was really low conversion rates from this traffic we created, even though we had a lot of traffic. And it's still something we deal with, like kind of combing out some old content. But what we kind of discovered over time is that identified over time is where we went wrong was audience. We didn't know our audience, so we created general content. And sometimes when you do that, you don't get any traction because the space is too competitive. Other times when you do that, you get traffic without conversion. Really, neither of these impact your bottom line. And so kind of the big trap was just not putting audience first. And now when we create content, it's all like laser targeted and focused towards that audience, which often means it's really actually pretty low in a keyword research tool on volume. And then when we create it and get it live and give it a couple months and we go back and look at the results, we're like, whoa, look at how many people we got. And these are like 100% our people. Whereas before we were maybe only getting like 5 or 10% our people coming to our blog. So that was a little bit of a school of hard knocks and a lesson we shouldn't have had to learn on our own business, but we did.
Yeah, I think, and I'm jumping ahead a little bit on my notes, but what you're saying about trying to figure out how to convert the traffic, like when I think about my personal story with SEO and where we are, like that's sort of a challenge that we're having. I don't think that we're in the not having the right audience. So we spent a lot of time before we published like even made our website public because we did a rebrand, we built our product, and we spent a lot of time making backdated blog posts because hey, that's what we did. And also a lot of time on our documentation for our plugin. And when we were going through and building out our rule set for our plugin, we looked at other accessibility tools, and a really popular one is called Wave. And we ended up deciding to name some of our rules similar to Wave. And then I wrote really, really detailed articles about what does this issue mean? Why is it being flagged? How are we flagging it? What is the accessibility implication and how to fix it? And a lot of those articles actually rank higher than Wave because Wave has like, I don't know, 400 words about their issue, and I have a lot longer, and they bring a lot of traffic. Like I just went this morning and looked, and I was looking at one, I have my analytics open because I was looking at it. It's like broken ARIA reference, which, it's like, but people Google that because they use other accessibility tools. They see that problem. And then mine ranks higher. And in the last week, there was 165 unique views, 1 minute, 27 seconds of engaged time. And I've seen that because I've run Hotjar before. And like, you see people reading the article, like they really do. But then I'm like, I don't know how to turn this person into someone that's like, oh, and I have a WordPress website, I should use your plugin instead of using Wave, right? So like that's something that we're right there trying to figure out as far as like actually, like I think we figured out what the strategy is to get it to rank and to bring the traffic. And I think it's the right traffic because I don't know a random person who just Googled that right, isn't trying to fix accessibility. But yeah, I don't know. That's a challenge that we've had on that same front.
Absolutely. And so that is what comes down the road. So, step one, your problem is getting traffic. And along the way, you want to make sure you get the right traffic. And then assuming you do those things, all of a sudden you see your traffic go up and you see what you mentioned, high engagement time. You can see on Hotjar, people are reading the post. But then those blog posts also have a high bounce rate, typically in old school talk of GA or Universal Analytics.
Yeah, they did that one and then they left.
They did that one. And so it's like, oh, I got them there for 3 minutes and then they're gone. And you can look at that with two, pieces of the coin. One is in this day, customer acquisition requires a lot of touch points. So we just had someone sign up for Pathfinder who said he'd been, following webinars and reading our content for 2 years. And so by creating that steady content and creating that steady touch point, you just kind of naturally stay top of mind and you might acquire a customer 6 months, a year or two down the road. So there is value, even if the metrics only show engagement on the post. But in the short run, I need leads. I need email addresses. I need that engagement. And, that's not necessarily my area of professional expertise. But I guess the piece that I've noticed in how we've approached that is when I do something like an exit intent pop-up on my blog post, because that's what people are doing, and I can pop up something like schedule a free demo or take this free course, it has a super low engagement rate. Like they're out. And the reason is because what I'm offering them is actually like 2 steps or 3 steps down the line. What I need to do is offer them something that's in the moment of where they are. So if they search on Google for SEO proposal template, and I have a great blog post about how to create an SEO proposal, and that shows they're like the perfect audience for us. They're thinking about creating an SEO services offering. Well, the next thing for them is not a demo of Pathfinder. The next thing for them is probably an actual like example template or something like that. And so if I can meet people with that exact next thing, my conversion rate skyrockets on those posts. And a lot of times that's just, via some kind of a saved row that I can insert and say, okay, every time I'm talking about sales, give this thing away as something in the content when they're halfway down the page. And then again at the bottom, keep that, salesy schedule a demo thing as a pop-up, knowing it probably won't convert. But if I can get their email, then I can get them in a couple webinars of ours, and then I can get them into a free course, and then I can sell them if they're on that slower path.
You mentioned email, and I realized that search engine optimization even applies to inboxes. I sometimes see something that I saw in an email that I don't remember exactly what it was, but I search for the term that I think it was. you've got to also optimize your email marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you search your email and like for that like 2-word phrase and things like that. And so, the other thing that we always think about with SEO is it's time consuming. So everything you do, you want to be really purposeful. And when you create a piece of content, you want to get content repurposing out of it. So, I think that was something I learned at Content Camp with Jennifer Bourne years ago. And she's like, everything needs 3 uses. And SEO is just one of those uses that you might find value out of. The other thing that people find value out of sometimes is actually running Google Ads to some of their top performing blog posts. So you think of Google Ads as like more customer direct acquisition, like bidding on SEO software for agencies or something like that in our context. So like what it is the thing you do, or plugin for this, or best form plugin, or whatever it might be. You think of Google Ads as being like, I only want to spend the money in that moment that they're ready to buy. But the reality is those keywords are typically pretty expensive because they're transactional and Google knows it. And so if you then go ahead and you say, okay, now I've sort of used SEO and I've got this system right. Like when someone searches SEO proposal template, they land on this blog post, they read it, we give away the template, we pop up the, demo, our conversion rates are solid. And if I go and I bid on that keyword in Google Ads, it's probably pretty inexpensive because there's low competition and it's not transactional. And so all of a sudden, then I can actually sort of put the wheels in motion that I built with SEO and get some repurposing by boosting that volume with a pretty modest ads budget too. So I guess kind of the theme here is that nothing happens in a silo. SEO is related to so many different other components of marketing strategy. But I also want people to walk away, hopefully feeling like this is doable. If I just commit to creating like an initial strategy and then starting to go get the reps in, just like you do with going to the gym or something. If you're trying to run a marathon, you're going to get there. And each step along the way, you're going to learn a couple of things. And it's going to build over time and be a powerhouse for your business.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think SEO often appears scary, and I might have reinforced that earlier, and I apologize if I did.
No, it is scary. I mean, everything's scary when you first when you first start working on it.
But I think, it's something that you can modify over time. And I think that's something that's important to remember about SEO, right? It's not a one and done. You're going to say, I optimized my website, I'm done now, right? You're constantly tweaking and improving that. And so to that effect, I feel like it doesn't have to be scary, because you just experiment, check your stats, see how things are going, and then you go back and experiment again. And as long as you approach it knowing that that's how SEO works, right? Unless someone has found a magic bullet. Have you found a magic bullet, Zach? What are you guys doing for SEO in your company?
Well, we rebranded recently, and from Gravity View to Gravity Kit. And that was a big process.
And you changed your domain too, right?
And we changed our domain, yeah. So we are still kind of recovering a little bit from that because we had so much domain value built up on gravityview.co, and now gravitykit.com doesn't have the same level of backlinks. So we still are trying to implement a strategy for building up our backlink network. But yeah, Gravity View actually started because I was doing keyword research. I was an SEO professional, and I was getting into doing WordPress plugins for clients for the benefit of increasing their SEO. So I would build back then, and I wonder if they changed this rule because of me. Back then, WordPress.org did not have no follow on the links on the plugins pages. So I would create a plugin for each new client that I had. And that's how I got into WordPress plugin development. So I had a genealogy client that was having trouble ranking for genealogy, and I created a genealogy plugin and submitted it. It was actually useful, so that's good too. But I created a backlink to their services, and it had a do follow from a domain ranking of 10, and it helped their products. So I kept on doing research about keywords in the WordPress space, and I was using Gravity Forms a lot. And I realized that Gravity Forms had a lot of queries that people were asking to do this with Gravity Forms, that with Gravity Forms. So I just create integrations with a bunch of different things that people were searching for. And one of the common searches was Gravity Forms Directory. So I created the Gravity Forms Directory add-on that is now Gravity View. So it is how I started my business. It's WordPress and SEO. And thank you, .org, for that inspiration.
I'm curious about both your opinions on this. So you included Gravity. So it's kind of connected to Gravity Forms, but maybe did that. But you didn't call it Gravity Forms Directory. You called it Gravity View. Is there an SEO reason, or, we went back and forth with this on our own, like our plugin is Equalize Digital Accessibility Checker. So it has branded for us in the front because Accessibility Checker is super generic. And I mean, Microsoft Word has an accessibility checker, right? But it was like, should it have a unique name versus literally just being the keywords of what it is? And I'm curious if either of you have thoughts on that before I kind of share where we landed.
So the WordPress.org plugin that I have that's still on the directory for free is Gravity Forms Directory. And when we were,
you do have one called that.
Yes, but it hasn't been maintained because we've been maintaining Gravity View instead. When we did Gravity View, I realized I didn't want to rely on a trademarked, copyrighted name that we couldn't use. So Gravity Forms, at the time, we weren't certified developers. We didn't have permission to use the term Gravity Forms. We do now, but I still think it's a good choice to have a name that is standalone from somebody else's trademark, or it's better to have your own name. Like if you were in Woo, like WooCommerce, like in the whole Woo territory, I bet you wished you didn't use that name in your product at this point because they no longer allow it. So being your own name,
you could say like
you freedom.
XYZ. Yeah, you could say XYZ product for WooCommerce, right?
Yeah, and we do that in our content.
Trademark.
Yeah, we do that on our website. We do that everywhere. But having our own trademark name is a benefit that I see for that, in our case at least.
What if it's not a trademark? Lindsay, do you have thoughts on just like using keywords in the name of a product? Like if you do keyword research, you're like, a lot of people search for this.
So I would go brand above SEO. So if you can naturally add the keywords into your brand without it doing a couple things, one being really generic, two infringing on trademarks, or three, you're a little later into the space. And so you're actually going to have to work hard to rank for your brand because you're not one of the first players in whatever that little keyword, space that you're going into. Those are all, to me, like reasons not to put the keywords into your name. If it comes naturally, if you're one of the early players, and if you're really confident you've got it right, and you can see like I can get number one for my own brand name, then that's a different story. But our original name was WP SEO Hub, and the reason was because we saw everybody else in the WordPress product space put in WP, and we thought, well, we're going to do what everybody else does, and we're going to be WP SEO Hub. And then all of a sudden, we realized like 6 months down the line, everybody thought we were a plugin and not a SaaS product. So we had a brand issue. And B, we actually worked with people on platforms beyond WordPress. And so we had to rename ourselves, do a domain, do everything, rebrand, rebuild, a bunch of stuff. And it's because we chased the WordPress SEO keyword space a little too aggressively. And so then we went with something generic that nobody was searching for. We quickly were number one for our brand. And we're not siloed in. If you go with Woo and then all of a sudden the trademark changes or your business evolves a little, you may be in a rebrand space very quickly. Mm-hmm. So where did you land? I'm curious.
Well, so of course our company name Equalize Digital is super unique, and we did do a lot of and we also looked for something trademarkable. So we did trademark searches also when we did that rebrand. But we were like, we knew we wanted a .com. So that was important for us. I don't know, Zach, when you went from a .co to a .com, was it important to have a .com as you were doing that name?
We had a .co for so long. I just wanted the .com. So we ended up buying the domain from an aftermarket, and we paid more than I wanted to, but we got it. Yeah.
I mean, I bought the Twitter handle for Equalize Digital because someone else had it. And we were like, that was the only social media where we couldn't be at Equalize Digital. And I saw other people tagging it And I was like, even though we keep saying that's not our handle, I was like, we just need to go buy it. And I was like, we should buy it now before we get really big because he's going to want more money. But yeah, I mean, I think it probably is worth, and if you can, no, they say it doesn't make a difference for SEO and whether it's a .com or not, but I think people expect a .com and you probably lose people. But yeah, so we did that. We did a lot of searches on, like we searched the phrase or phrases of other names we were thinking about, and we would go multiple pages deep to try and figure out who else owns the space as far as choosing a name. But then for the actual plugin, we did a lot of keyword research, and like we talked about, do we do something like Access-a-Check, which is like a combination, but it's like a trademarkable word, right? Versus a phrase. Accessibility checker isn't. Which I think could have been fine, but then we also had things like one of my partners, Steve, was like, "Oh, that sounds like do we make checks like we're a bank or something?" Like it's just not clear what it is. And when we first submitted the plugin to .org with our free version, we did it without Equalize Digital on the front, and so our slug is /accessibility-checker. And then we updated our name to include that so that we could have like the shorter slug, which I don't know how much that impacts SEO, but it seemed like it might be helpful. So,
yeah, like everything with SEO,
so
there's an art and a science. And the biggest thing, I always think is like, you just want to kind of think it through from both angles of the coin. You want to do your due diligence. And when you're picking a name, it's a big decision. And but that at the end of the day, you kind of have to just go like use good problem solving and good critical thinking skills, make a decision, run with it, and then reevaluate it and, evolve and change as needed. Because when you're starting a business, you certainly can't get it all right out of the gate.
Lindsay, I wanted to ask you, for product owners who are thinking about the future of SEO, could you talk about the changes that are going on right now with how to optimize for current Google, but also how to optimize for AI?
Absolutely. So everything, in the 10 plus years I've worked in SEO, I feel like everyone talks about change, and I've just seen it as sort of steady evolution. And the name of the game has still been the same thing, this content and sort of building domain trust and authority. And now all of a sudden AI is here. And for the first time, I was like, ooh, this is actually going to potentially change things up, like it is probably across anything and everything and in every industry space. And so one of the things that we see with AI, a couple of things. The most immediate is people want to know, can I use AI to create content? So all of a sudden I have this idea, I'm going to go fire up today like 50 blog posts, all generated by AI, publish them to my website and set my SEO aside. And magic, poof. And, ultimately Google still values content that has genuine expertise and experience. And you don't get experience and expertise in that like human value. And when you think about a blog or a blog post, a lot of times they start with real world experience. Like if I read something about health, I don't just want the what, why, when, why. I want to know like a little bit of what the person's angle is. Did they have this problem too? Is this something that they see in their clinic all the time? Like, who are they? Why are they writing about this? And am I in the right place? Do I trust this resource? You're not going to get that from AI generated content. So when it comes to AI content and just like, it's a great accelerator for the implementation of SEO in your business, but we're leveraging it to accelerate things like creating an outline for a blog post or looking at things from every angle. Like people wanted to talk about how to create more automation in their digital agency. And I thought, okay, here's the automations I have. I bet there are 1 trillion more out there. I kind of want to know about them in categories. And so go to ChatGPT and get the categorical, view of it, and then figure out how you're going to approach it. So we use it for research and writing outlines. And then we use it for turning content we did write ourselves from that outline, generally speaking, into like social media messages and stuff like that. And we're finding a lot of accelerators out of AI without it being the like thing that makes it so I can publish 50 blog posts today. So in the short run, when it comes to AI and SEO and content, that's just kind of one thing to consider. But in the much bigger picture is like, well, what is Google going to disappear? what's going to happen with this search generative experience, which you can actually get your hands on right now at a Google Labs. And you can see what what Bing is doing with its integrations with OpenAI, et cetera. And from what we're seeing right now is, first of all, Google's not going to build in like AI in a way that takes everything away from businesses. That's what we're worried about, right? We work so hard to get traffic and build this blog post, and then AI comes along and no one clicks on our business link. They just read the AI and the generative experience, and then they move on to another search. What you'll see if you kind of start to play around with Google's, search generative experience is that there are still websites featured in the results, and that not everybody is going to trust the AI. They are still going to want to go to authoritative websites on the topic. And we also, you want to get in there, and you're going to get in there and get in that kind of box at the top by having the content that Google still trusts and leverages sort of this AI world with its algorithm world and what it's built into whatever the future of SEO looks like. So I guess it's a long-winded, it's an evolution. We're going to keep an eye. We're not doing anything different, Lee, in our agency or at Pathfinder. It's still business as usual. But it is, in my mind's eye, more of a reason to invest in content and creating quality content, not less because you think, oh, it'll just disappear. That traffic will just disappear for me in a year from now.
And possibly even getting it done sooner is more important, so they can scrape it sooner and integrate it into future models.
Absolutely. And always thinking about like, well, what is the end all be all of, I work with a lot of people in travel. And so they're like, well, if I create the top things to do blog post and it's doing really well, and then Google or, then AI just lists it and the generative experience, and then somebody moves on and they just search for lodging or hotels or whatever, like help me plan my trip. Like, well, right, but isn't your end goal ultimately to bring this person to this place and to get them to book lodging and to get them to book with you? And they're like, yeah, I'm like, so we might lose that click. It's possible that we will lose our things to do traffic. But that's one measure of success. But our bigger measure of success is lodging bookings and nights and revenue, et cetera. And right now I don't see AI threatening that top part. I see it threatening potentially some of the traffic piece, but if the AI does a good job and is trained up and it still brings the person to that destination, it just accelerates them into the transaction, and you're there for the transaction, then there's value there. So I don't know. To me, it's an evolution we're watching, and it won't be the same for every business. But I also trust that Google's not going to just become all AI because they want to protect their ad revenue. And their ad revenue requires somebody to click on and go to a website.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were some concerns in the beginning when they introduced answer boxes that was going to, and certainly it does, right? Like, if you want to translate something, you don't have to go to a website anymore. You can type it in and it won't do that. So maybe if you were a publisher that was relying on ad revenue in that way, but I think for like product owners, it's very unlikely that the AI search will stop people from coming to your website, because I feel like even the answers it returns, every time I play around like with ChatGPT or something like that, I'm kind of underwhelmed. And from like a technical standpoint, when it tries to summarize things. And so I feel like maybe it will provide some answers, but especially like if you look at Bing's, right? Like it will frequently link to sources if you play around with their chat search. And so I think the people that are more likely to become a customer are probably they might use it to figure out where to go, but they're going to go to the website.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that also we will see the evolution of how people enter keyword phrases into Google. We'll see that evolve. So you can think about how we all used to search on Google like 2, 3, 4, sometimes like 5 or 6, word phrases. Now I watch my kids do everything with voice, and their searches are like ridiculously long. But I also put in much longer queries than I used to. And so with the introduction of AI and SEO, you start to also be able to add context to get more nuance into your answers. So before I would put top things to do, in summer in whatever the destination was, if I was trying to plan a trip. But with AI, I might start to put in the who for families or for, my honeymoon or whatever it might be. you're going to add context. And in this space, and in the WordPress product space, you can imagine someone's trying to make a decision on a plugin. There are multiple plugins in a space, and they're trying to decide which one is best. In the old days, you just put plugin 1 versus plugin 2, or plugin 1 or plugin 2, and you read a couple of things and then you move on and make your decision. Now I can imagine people are going to put in other things, like if cost is a factor, if I have 10 websites, if accessibility is my primary goal, or you're going to start to see this evolving nature. And so the more content you create, I would say also that's very specific, and puts that little audience in mind, or kind of takes a very specific angle, may also be a benefit, because I suspect that's the direction people will start to go with their queries.
So you think product owners should be writing more detailed content targeted to those longer queries? So I'd be like, how accessibility checker is cheaper than other solutions, or something like that, or whatever it might be, like trying to figure out what people are searching and writing really long tail articles about our products for that specific angle.
It depends a little bit. How you integrate that content depends a little bit on how specific you're going. So whenever you're deciding, and you're getting specific, it's like, is the whole topic specific? Or should this be like an FAQ or a section of an existing post? So if you are going like really narrow, you're probably getting to the place where it should be a section or an FAQ question on an existing post. Whereas when you have something a little bit broader, you can actually start to, write that content. So if it's this versus this for digital agency owners, or for, whatever your space is, then that's going to be a whole article. But if you're starting to get really, really specific, and you feel like it's a stretch, like the content doesn't add a lot of value, you're just trying to get words in there, then it's probably a section of a post or a page or something else.
Well, I wonder too, there's a lot with SEO that's offsite kind of stuff, how important it is. Because if we think about best X plugin for WordPress, there's probably a handful of really popular websites out there that aren't product websites, right? Like WP Beginner or other sites like that have articles like that already show up in page 1. And so rather than trying to write our own content for that, like maybe a better approach is trying to approach those websites and be like, hey, my plugin exists now, it didn't before. Would you update this article and include? Does that sound like a good strategy?
Absolutely. And so, you see this opportunity, and that's just PR. And you're like, actually, my business should be mentioned here. They wrote this when we weren't around or were small. And so they wrote it about the 3 big players, and we want them to expand it. It's very likely that that business wants to protect its traffic. And the way it's going to protect is going to be to evolve that content over time. So if it was written 2 years ago, it's probably due a refresh, and that's going to benefit its own legs in its search results. And so reaching out to that author and saying, hey, the next time you revise this post, would you consider including us? And then giving them the talking points kind of formatted in the same way, like make it easy on their copywriters, and say like, hey, and here are the, based on the format of this, here's what we think our pros and cons are in this space. And like, you did the work for them, that publisher is going to be psyched because you just added value to their content and you took work off their plate. And that is oftentimes a better play than writing your same thing, especially in the best space, and trying to feature yourself as best. Like, it just doesn't really work very, very clearly. And so, yeah, that's a great strategy. And then rinsing and repeating that and say, well, there's 10 articles that are best, whatever it is, and make sure that you kind of go and give that pitch to all 10 of them.
Yeah. So maybe this is a good transition into our best advice for new product owners on the SEO front. Zach, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think that in thinking about SEO, before you launch your product, if you have a product in mind right now, start writing content for it, put it on a website, get it indexed, and you don't have to have the product live yet. You can talk about developing your product, like developing it in public. And each one of those posts that you write about your product on is going to help you establish your domain, help you establish your keywords, help you rank when you do actually launch that product. So the second you have your idea, if it's right now, go register a domain if you don't have one. Start writing content right now and describing the problems that you're going to solve with your product in language that people would describe it to you. I'm trying to do this and it can't do that. Write an article about it and start right now, and you can rank for a keyword before you even have a product to sell. And including not just on your own website, but going to places like Reddit and Stack Overflow and responding, becoming an expert there and saying, hey, I've got this product that I already have or that I'm about to build. Check it out. So SEO is not just on your website, like I think Amber was just saying. It's also at places where people go to search for answers. Search engine optimization, optimize it by going wherever people are asking the questions and answering them there.
Yeah. Lindsay, what about you? What's your top advice for WordPress product owners?
So I think that's a really great one from Zack, and a hard one to follow, of course. But, I'd go with writing down your target audience on a Post-it note so it stays top of mind while you're investing in SEO. That little just like always reminder, and to focus your initial content and your initial strategy on their problems. So people go to Google and they search for problems. There's always search volume there. And so identifying what it is that they're searching for, sometimes by just going to Google and like starting a query and seeing how the search suggest comes in, is going to be really great fodder for all of this kind of initial building that Zack's talking about, of like just get going with it early before your product's even live. Because the sooner you get out there, you'll start to build some trust and authority out of that content, and you'll start to just build that long-term value, that snowball accumulation effect. And down the road, if your audience shifts a little, you might be able to just pivot your content a bit. You don't have to throw it all away. You can just go back and revise content to be more targeted towards the right audience, et cetera. But audience first is really a big part of where Google's going to, is we want you to be helpful to people online, and you do that by knowing who those people are.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the biggest pieces that I would add to all of that, especially for a product owner that's like, I'm not a writer, this feels really daunting, is we spent a lot of time talking about how we could generate content that was trustworthy without having to put as much effort into it. And one of the key points on that is that at my company, I am the person outside of, now we have an accessibility specialist, but outside of them, I'm the person who knows the most about accessibility. And of course, our dev team does, but they're busy building things. They're not writing. They're writing code, not words, copy. And then we have a content specialist, but she's not an accessibility expert or someone who's really studied accessibility in depth. And so for us, it was a challenge on the blog post front, because we were thinking, we don't want to, our content specialist is a great writer, but I don't want her putting out information that is incorrect about accessibility, because that could damage our reputation. And then it became, I was a bottleneck. And that was one of the things that led us to starting our meetup, because we were like, you know what we can do? We can run the meetup, we record the meetups. And then after the fact, if you go look at our blog, it's almost 90% meetups, because this is the easiest way to get content that doesn't require me to be a bottleneck on the content. So we have other people come and speak. We record, we have a video, we get corrected captions and a full transcript that's corrected by a human being. It's investment. We pay a transcription company to do that. But that gets us some very long form content that is helpful to users on that front. And so I think there are ways you could look at it. If you're like, I'm not a great writer, well, maybe you can do videos, and then you could have someone else who is good at summarizing the video, write a summary for the video, and they don't have to be the expert in code or whatever it is that your product sells, or even your product, but they just have to be good at summarizing a video. And we've done this with some of our clients back when we were doing a lot more of this, is we would be like, if a case study, like we just say, all right, let's just get on a Zoom call and you can answer all these questions for us. What is the challenge? Who was the customer? What was your approach? And how do you solve it? And they just talk, and then you go write it down. Right. And so I think that there's maybe some creative ways that you can go about producing the content without having to feel like you have to sit down in front of a computer and write 1,500 words. So I think, yeah. Do you have thoughts about that?
I was gonna wrap up. Yeah.
Go for it.
All right. Well, thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay Halsey of Pathfinder SEO. So next week, join us because we're going to be discussing customer-centric support, enhancing the WordPress product experience with special guest Jack Arturo of WP Fusion. So come join us for that.
And special thanks to Post Status for being our green room. Hit like and subscribe and all those helpful things on YouTube to help us. And we'll see you here next week.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Lindsay.